How important to a claim of self-defense is our knowledge of the consequences of a dog attack? It's all important, all important, because this is what would happen. The prosecution would argue that all that dog represented was a threat to your clothing, and you shot the dog's owner over that. Now, if that's believed, if the only threat of the dog is to your clothing, it's a non-deadly force threat. So even though the dog owner was using the dog as a weapon, it was only being used as a non-deadly force weapon. You can't shoot the owner for attacking you with non-deadly force. So to justify your use of non-deadly force against the owner, you'd have to be able to articulate that you had a reasonable belief that the dog represented a threat, not just to your clothing, but a threat of death or serious bodily injury to you. And the prosecutor might argue, well, that's not true. That's not true. Dogs nip and bite people all the time. It's not serious bodily injury. There was no evidence this dog represented any particular deadly force threat. So you'd want to be able to introduce to the jury evidence that pit bulls kill and maim and take limbs off of people. But before you could introduce that kind of evidence, you'd need to demonstrate to the court that you possessed that knowledge at the time you were making your use of force decision, that you didn't learn of it later. So one way you can document that is, if you're a law self-defense member, you have access to every piece of content we do, including this, with the picture of Sean Sorrentino. If you see news reports of dog attacks and you see the horrific injuries, I would save those. I would document all of those in your, you should have a file with everything, every bit of information or knowledge that you think might be helpful to you in court if you're defending against a use of force, and document it, have dates on it. You don't need a lot of evidence that you possess this knowledge at the time you acted in self-defense. It's basically a more than zero evidence standard. But if there's zero evidence, if something has zero evidence, it doesn't exist for legal purposes. So you need more than that. If you're a law self-defense member, you could simply point to this show and say, hey, I saw that guy's face, Sean's face, mauled by that dog. That's serious bodily injury. I was aware those were the risks of that dog's attack.